Hello, and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about The Demonologist, The Extraordinary Career of Ed and Lorraine Warren by Gerald Brittle. This is from Graymalkin Media. They weren't the first to publish it back in 1980. They're just the most recent people to publish it. So this is essentially a biography of Ed and Lorraine Warren. The best way to describe it, I think. And this is a tough book for me to review. Now, I'm not a professional. I make no money doing this, so essentially I can do whatever the hell I want. But with a book like this, I find it difficult to review it without letting my personal bias affect what I think. So, to start off with, so the book itself, I guess, is, again, it's a biography of Ed and Lorraine Warren. We get a little bit of information about where and when they were born, a little bit about their life growing up, but mainly it is about their career. And as, well, Ed's the demonologist, Lorraine is a clairvoyant. So the book talks a lot about different cases that they worked on. There's right off the bat, talks a little bit about Amityville, although they were sort of secondary. They weren't involved in the immediacy of the Amityville horror case. They were brought in later to check out the house. There's the Annabelle, the actual. See, the fact that I'm using air quotes sort of should tell you what I think about this. The Annabelle case is in here. There's a little bit about the Enfield case, which I believe is the basis for The Conjuring 2. I don't think the case that's the basis for the first Conjuring movie is in here. And the basis for the most recent is not in here. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which I watched when it premiered. That's why I decided to go ahead and read this. I have a whole bunch of Ed and Lorraine Warren books, and I figured I'd go ahead and read this after watching The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. So it talks a lot about their cases. They talk a lot about their cases. Some of this, some of it's in interview form with a question, the author asking a question, and then Ed and or Lorraine answering, talking. Some of the cases that they talk about, the whole thing is like in quotes from Ed, so he's the one telling it, and then some of the stuff is not, so it's the author himself reporting it, I suppose, is the best way to put it. And then there's stuff about what these cases mean, what's involved, whether it's basically a ghost, and this is the most simplified. Basically, you have either a ghost or a demon. So there's a lot of talk about that, a lot of talk about what goes into an exorcism, a lot of talk about what Ed and Lorraine Warren do to prepare for a case. So it's written well enough. It's, to use a term that I got a little flack for by an author, it's written in a workmanlike kind of way. So the writing is it's fine, but it is again, kind of a biography, so I wouldn't expect a flair for the dramatic or anything. Although, considering the type of stuff they're talking about, maybe you might expect that. But it's just very straightforwardly written. Well, I guess it does get a little flowery in a couple of places where the author is sort of establishing things. He'll say it was a a warm, sunny day as we sat out on the porch, blah, 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 blah. Or one particular chapter starts with almost like it's a story where a cop is yelling down an embankment, "Is everybody in the car okay?" And then we learn that Ed and Lorraine were in the car that went off this embankment, and this is what happened. So the writing is fine. It's not, never gets boring, but it never gets like exciting to me either. I'm going to jump right in. I gave it 2 out of 5 on Goodreads, which their rating system is, it was okay. I can't say I liked it. Certainly didn't really like it or love it. But I can't give it a 1 star, which I don't remember exactly what they have 1 star at, but it was okay. It's something I'm interested in. Otherwise I wouldn't have these books. So I guess if this is the kind of thing that interests you, then I say go ahead and read it. Absolutely. There is some interesting stuff in here. Man, do I get into my personal thoughts on this stuff? I mean, just the fact that I'm waffling on this, I think you could take it one way or the other. Do I think I'm going to embarrass myself by saying I absolutely wholeheartedly believe in this stuff? Or am I going to maybe annoy some people by saying I think it's all bullshit? But I find it difficult to talk about this without expressing my personal opinion. Maybe that's why I'm not a professional reviewer. So, yeah, again, if the cases are interesting, although, like the Annabelle case, absolutely, the way it's laid out here would not make a good movie. Because essentially not much happens. And I have not seen any of the Annabelle movies. But, yeah, it's very straightforward. Not much happens. Would not make a good movie. So I'm assuming there's a lot of license taken with the Annabelle movie. There are pictures in here. There is a picture of the Annabelle, which is as opposed to what you see in the movies as a Raggedy Ann doll. There's a picture of Ed standing next to the case that they have the Raggedy Ann doll in. By the way, there's a picture of Ed and Lorraine right there. And then there are other pictures from another case that they worked on that show. See, this is where, you know what, screw it. It purportedly shows the proof of demonic activity. But it's like, it's a picture of a tipped over table. That doesn't prove anything to me. It's just a picture of a turned over table. Now, if they had video, although nowadays almost anything can be faked, but this is back in the 70s. So if they had video of that, it might be more impressive. But just showing me a picture of a turned over table or dresser drawers that are halfway out, not really proof to me. So, yeah, I've given it away. I do not believe any of this stuff. I think Ed and Lorraine were con artists, and I think she's got sort of a smarmy look on her face. All right, so, but it does interest me. I'm interested in this sort of thing. I'm interested in why people believe this sort of thing, and so again, that's why I've read it. When I reviewed the first Conjuring movie during one of my 31 movies in 31 days for October things, I said, if you can ignore the based on a true story bullshit, it's an effectively creepy movie. And that's the way I feel about this sort of thing. I don't believe these things happened to Ed and Lorraine Warren, but it's fascinating to read about it. There are some contradictions in here. Some of the things they say, they contradict themselves from chapter to chapter. They'll say spirits can only do this, ghosts, let's say, because I think spirits is too big a word that encompasses everything. Ghosts can only do this, but then later on they'll be like, and the ghost did this. But you said they couldn't do that earlier. Or they talk about how demons can only possess, they can only come into your life and possess you and do all these crazy things if they're invited. But then they talk about a case where a demon possessed somebody because they were so pure and religious, and the demon thought it would be funny, essentially, to destroy that person, but there's nothing about the demon being invited in. So I thought they could only show up if... Anyway, see, now I'm getting into all the personal stuff. But again, it's my channel. I can do whatever I want. There's a whole series of these. I personally waited until Ed and Lorraine Warren had both passed on, because I didn't want to put any money in their pocket when I bought these. I found out, I didn't know they had a daughter, so I don't know if she gets the money. Maybe this publishing company is irreparable. I should have done maybe a little more research before I actually spent money on this, because I don't want to go into some shady people. But I've got, like I said, I've got a whole bunch of these. Some of them are written as novels. I mean, they're non-fiction, and maybe we'll get into that. Ray Garton, great horror author, co-wrote one. He wrote it. I've interviewed him about it. We can get into that when the time comes, once I've read it. The only other one of these I've read was basically kind of like a short story collection. It was just a whole bunch of their cases. Let's say 15. I don't remember how many were in there. But each one was written as if it were a short story, which is kind of what I was expecting from this. But this is straight up biography. None of the stuff is told, except for, again, a couple little flowery things to introduce establishing shots, as it were, not told as stories. It's, like I said, interviews, a lot of Ed and Lorraine talking, telling us these things. So it's fascinating, whether or not you believe it. I guess that's up to you. I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying I do not believe in any of this. I think Ed and Lorraine Warren were scummy people who took advantage. And they do mention they do not charge for their time when they're helping somebody. But they do charge expenses. They charge for their travel. They charge for their hotel, I would assume. They're basically expenses, anything. Plus, they make a ton of money made, because they're not around anymore, a ton of money on the lecture circuit, selling the rights for books and movies and all that other stuff. So, when people say, well, they donated their time to help people, they must have been good people. I'm not buying that, personally. Anyway, all right, so that really doesn't have much to do with the book itself, which, again, it was okay. It's fascinating material. If you have any interest at all in Ed and Lorraine Warren, or if you've seen like the Conjuring movies or the Annabelle movies, or The Nun is part of that whole Conjuring universe, and The Curse of La Llorona, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, La Llorona. This could be a nice supplemental material. Again, they talk about Annabelle. Excuse me. They talk about Amityville. They talk about the Enfield case, which is Conjuring 2. So, yeah, it's... I don't know. I want to say... I can't say I recommend it wholeheartedly, but if it's something that interests you, it's not a bad book to read. Does that make sense? I guess. I considered not even reviewing this, but I'm behind on my reading, and if I don't do this video, then I'm not going to have anything for... I'm doing this on Sunday as well. I just finished reading this. Usually record all my stuff on Saturday, generally. But I only have one video for... Let's see, what is today's date? What the hell is today's date? The 13th. It's Sunday the 13th. I have one video for tomorrow, and then I would have nothing for Friday. So I figured I'd go ahead and try this out. See if anybody at all cares about this. So at least I have something to post, and then hopefully by next week I'll have read some things. I got a couple novellas lined up so I can maybe catch up a little bit on my reading, although I got a stack of comics to read. All right, that's neither here nor there. That's not what you're here for. You don't care about that. All right, so there we have it. The Demonologist, The Extraordinary Career of Ed and Lorraine Warren by Gerald Brittle. Give it a try if it's the kind of subject matter that interests you. So, yeah, that's all I got. So if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comics, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. That's it. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.